Okay, we're working with integer exponents. We have worked with exponents before. You know that this is 4 to the power of 2, or 4 squared. You know that the 4 is your base, and the 2 is your power. You also know that means 4 times 4 equals 16. Okay, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with negative exponents. But first, let's take a look at a few that we've seen. You guys have seen ones that looks like this. Okay, but what's the difference? Okay, with this one, the negative sign is it's on its own. So you place it on the outside and you just square the 3. So this becomes 3 times 3, which is 9, and it becomes a negative 9. Whereas with this one, that means it's connected to it. So it's a negative 3 times a negative 3, which is a positive 9. So make sure you know the difference. If it doesn't have a parenthesis, the negative is on its own. And if it has the parentheses around it, that means the negative is connected to it. And it's there twice. Okay. But what about these negative powers? Okay. First off, anytime something is to the power of 0, it is 1. And kind of in the same way, when you have something and it's to the power of 1, it becomes itself. Okay, but now let's look at when they're negative. I got 4 to the negative 2. You can never keep your negative exponents or your powers. What you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to put it over 1. So it'll become 1 to the 4, and then your power becomes positive. So this means it's 1 to 4 times 4, which we of course know is 1 to 16th. Okay. So let's take a look at another one. We have a 10 to the negative 3rd. Same thing. You're going to put it over 1. It becomes 10 to the 3rd power, or 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. So it's 1 over 1,000. Okay. Now what about if you're given one and your negative is a fraction? Okay. Same thing. Move it up to the top. So now it becomes 4 squared, which we already know from doing above is 16. Okay. And we would have the same thing if we worked with 1 to the negative 1/3. Bring them up, and it becomes 3 to the 3rd power, which is 3 times 3 times 3, which is, this is 9. 9 times 3, so this is 27. Okay. Now doing the same thing, we can do that with variables. So in this case, we have a to the negative 3rd power. So this would still go 1 and put it a to the 3rd. There's no more simplifying we can do there, so leave that alone. And here, like we did on the other page, these would move up. There's nothing to combine it with, so it becomes 8a to the 3rd power. Okay. Now there will be times that you can reduce, and if you remember way back when you reduce fractions, you look for what you can take out. Here's a 4. There's only one 4 there. And here I have 4 of them, so I can reduce it to be 1/4. Okay, or it's the same thing as having, there's 4 times 4. I can cross those out, and I'm left with 1/4. Okay, you can do the same thing with variables. Okay, think about it this way. We have 2 of them there, don't we? So b times b. And then here I've got b times b times b. So eliminate the ones that you can. So these are together. These are together. And since we have a fraction, it has to stay 1 over b. Now there will be times when you mix things up. Like in this case here. Can't have negative variables. So we're going to move this. We're going to have a fraction and move this to the bottom. So this one becomes 9x to the 3rd power cubed over y to the power of 2, or squared. Okay, let's try another. Same thing. Pretend we have a fraction. All this goes below. So it becomes 5y to the 4th power. Nothing else can reduce, so leave it there. Here's one other way we're going to work at this. Okay, it's going to be you're going to evaluate for each expression given a value. So I have x squared and y to the 0 power. And over here it says x is equal to 2 and y is 5. So substitute in. So I'm going to make my negative 2 squared. And it's going to be times the y, which was 5, to the 0 power. Now what happens here to the 0 power? It becomes a 1. So this is times 1. Now this is going to be a negative 2 squared. So it'll become 4. So this is just 4 times 1, which is 4. Okay, let's look at another. I have a to the power of 3, b to the power of 3 are cubed. Over here it tells me a is equal to 4 and b is equal to 2. So I'm going to put it in 4 cubed times 2 cubed. So this was 4 times 4 times 4. And this one is 2 times 2 times 2. So this is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Times 2 is 4. Times another 2 is 8. So 64 times 8. And when I multiply these, they will be equal to 512. Okay. Now let's look at it when we have a negative exponent. What do we have to do with them? We bring them to the bottom. So this one actually becomes negative a to the cubed to b to the 4th power, and then plug in. Okay. Now with this negative is going to stick to the outside. So put it to the outside, and inside here it tells us a is 2, so that goes here. Then you're going to cube that over, and over here b is negative 1. So then it becomes negative 1, because it goes with it, it'll go in the parentheses to the 4th power. Now we know this is even. So that means I have 4 of these. So negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. It's going to become positive because I have 4 of them. Okay, so this is over 1. And then this is going to become 2 times 2 times 2, which from above we know is 8. But since there's a negative, it becomes negative 8. So our answer for this one will be a negative 8. Okay, let's take a look at another one. So this time I have negative u inside parentheses. So no matter what that number is, it's going to be negative squared and v to a negative 6. So once again, put this, move it to the bottom, and it becomes positive. Okay, our u's are going to be 2, and they're going to end up being negative. So negative 2 squared over, and in this case our v's are 2 to the 6th power. So negative 2 times a negative 2 makes it a positive 4. And 2 to the 6th power means it's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So this is 4. This is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. And 32 times 2 is 64. Once again, we're going to see how many 4s we can take out. I can take out 1 here. And I believe here, let's see, 4 into 64 goes once, 1 left over, goes in there 6 times. So it is 1 over 16. All right, let's take a look at the worksheet. Go ahead, pause the video if you need to grab it. Okay? All right, so with this one, for number 1, you have 5 to a negative 3. Like we said, you got a 1 underneath, move them. So it becomes 5 to the 3rd power, which we all know means 5 times 5 times 5, which would be 25. 25 times 5 is 125. That's what your answer would be for this one. Okay, for here, now we've got negative 5 to the negative second power. Okay, so once again, pretend there's a 1, put it under, so it becomes 1. Now this negative stays with the number. The only one that changes is your exponent. So negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, and it's positive. So this one becomes 25 over 1. Okay. All right. Like we said, if it's a 0 power, it becomes a 1. It doesn't matter if it's a negative, it just becomes a 1. All right. Let's take a look at some of these where you have to evaluate, where you have to substitute in for numbers. So for number 8, we have a to the 5th power and b to the negative 6. Like we showed in the video, go ahead, take it, move that negative exponent down with the variable. So b to the 6th. Okay. Now let's substitute in numbers. A to the 5th power will be 3 to the 5th power over b to the 6th power, and for b we're going to put in 2. So b to the 6th power. Okay, so for this one, 3 to the 5th power will become 243, whereas 2 to the 6th power becomes 64. Okay, look if there's a possibility to reduce that. We'll double check it later. But let's go down here to this one for number 11. So now I got 5z to the negative z. Okay, we know it's going to move down, but go ahead, let's do that work first in here. So we got 5 times, and z is a negative 3. Then this whole thing will go to that negative 2. Okay, so inside this then becomes a negative 15 to the negative squared. So then it'll become, remember, put it over 1, put it down. So it becomes 1 to the negative 15 squared, so 15 times 15, which is 225. It is going to be positive because I'm doing a negative times a negative. Okay? All right, let's take a look at somewhere we just have to simplify. As a number 15. Now, both of these are negative exponents, so that means they're going to flip-flop each other. So this is going to become t to the 5th power over s to the 3rd power. Can't do anything more there, so go ahead and leave it alone. Okay, let's go over to 17. Okay, as we see, our x, he's got a negative exponent, and so does our y. So those two are both going to move down here. The z to the 4th power stays below. So this one gets rewritten as 2. I'm going to go ahead and put x to the 3rd, y to the 2nd, and z to the 4th. Okay, one more. Okay, so let's take a look at number 19. Once again, they're going to flip-flop, aren't they? Because they're both negative exponents. Okay, and it's just going to go with the a, and this one's going to go with the c. The 14 and 20 stay where they are, along with the b. So it becomes 14 over 20. And then what moved to the top was the c with the 1. And what moved down, well, the b stays. And then the a comes down with the 4. So that's what it looks like now. Now remember, if you can reduce your fraction, your whole numbers, reduce it. I see I could take 2 into each. So this one will become 7. That one will become 10. Rewrite your exponents. And I'm going to put a to the 4th because it looks a little better. But if you left it like that, it's fine. So then this is your final answer simplified. Okay? All right, go ahead, you guys, continue working on the worksheet. If you have any questions, please ask.